Okay, this is uh, um, part chapter 5, part 1, part 2 lecture. I know it's kind of confusing here. We left off talking about Pavlov. Today we talked about John Brody Watson. He's the father of American behaviorism. He took Pavlov's stuff and made it into a school of psychology. He was an environmentalist, which he didn't mean he hugged trees, but he believed the environment controlled behavior. And he's the one that said all behavior must be overt. You have to see it to believe it. Um, and one day, he was president of the American Psychological Association. He said, you can train anybody with classical conditioning. And a lot of people at that time thought, you can condition animals, but you can't condition people. Well, it was like throwing a red cape in front of a bull. And so John Buddy Watson and his assistant Rosalie went ahead and got Albert, and they conditioned him by they would put a rat first, but I like to use a rabbit because rabbits cure their rat. But he eventually used a rabbit. But anyway, he put that in his lap, Albert's lap, and Rosalie went behind him, and with two iron pipes made a loud noise, and that made Albert cry because babies cry due to loud noises. And eventually, every time Albert saw the rabbit, he cried. So, the rabbit was the NS, turned into the CS. The loud noise with the UCS crying to the loud noise with the UCR. Now the CS, which is the rabbit, you have the response of crying to the rabbit. And Watson said, see, I can control, you can condition people. So, so anyway, Albert, had a hard time at Christmas because he generalized Santa's beard with the rabbit, anything white, and the orphanage said, "What did you do, this kid?" And so Watson said, "Well, give him back to me. Anything conditioned can be unconditioned. Anything we learn can be unlearned." But they didn't, so he got Albert too. Did the same experiment, and this time he used the threshold method. And in the book, we go a little bit deeper. We got more modern with Volpe and systematic desensitization, which is a offshoot of the threshold method. And the threshold method was they would put the rabbit in a cage, and they would just hug Albert too. Really, his name was Albert, but it made a difference. And eventually, you could put the rabbit in Albert two's lap, and he wouldn't cry. So Watson said, "See, anything learned can be unlearned." So that was the start of behaviorism. And then along comes Guthrie, and Guthrie is famous for being the father of one trial learning. Now, there are cases in life that you have one trial. I mean, you put your hand on a hot plate, you don't do it again. You learn it in one trial. But in most cases, we don't learn in one trial. So you go, okay, Julian, why are we spending so much time on Guthrie then? Well, we're not spending a lot of time on Guthrie, but he did come with contiguity. And contiguity is time. How close is the R to the S? The closer the response is to the stimulus, the easier or quicker it is learned. So if you have a stimulus and then it's an hour or two later, you're not going to have the association or the connection. It's like working with animals. If the dog poops in the house and you come home and you see it, and the dog runs up to you to say hello, and you get really mad and pat hit the dog in the pat the dog on the rear end and say bad dog, bad dog. He doesn't think that he doesn't make the link to go into the bathroom. He makes the link of, oh my God, if I walk up and say hello, I get spanked. So contiguity is very, very important with conditioning because the closer the R is to the S, the faster it's learned. So Guthrie really gave us the emphasis to go on to bigger and better things in conditioning. And then the last person we have is the father of Ed Psych, good old E.L. Thorndike. And E.L. Thorndike believed in using behaviorism in the classroom. And he established the importance of reinforcement. And then, of course, Skinner took that and ran with it. And so he said learning was involving the stamping of S-R, connectionism, and forgetting is the stamping out of S-R. And he's famous for his cat experiment, where he put a cat in a puzzle box, and the cat had no previous knowledge, and so eventually it would try a few things, and eventually it would lock on to hitting the lever, and the door would open, and the cat would run out. So through trial and error, the cat learned how to get out. But what Thorndike discovered was that because the cat got out and got reinforced because there was food out there, that's when he developed the law of effect, which means it says if you do something successfully, the next time that situation comes up, you'll do that same thing over again. So the law of effect is really basically reinforcement. And so after various trials to attain satisfaction, that's a trial and error, sooner or later by chance, a set response leads to satisfaction. And that's what happened with the cat. The cat kind of played around mad in the puzzle box, and pretty soon it luckily hit a lever, door open. The next time you throw the cat in, he takes a lot less time, and eventually you throw the cat in, he goes, hits a lever, and he's out before you could get back to the beginning of it. And so Thorndike then started the idea of the law of effect. There's a couple other laws I want you to know. The law of exercise is Guthrie did not believe in practice. So you absolutely go, oh, I love Guthrie. Because Guthrie says, once try learning. Once you know how to shoot a foul shot, why do you keep practicing? You already know how to do it. But Thorndike believed in practice, good old multiplication tables. And the law of exercise is simply repetition. The more you do something, the more it's stamped in or learned. And the other law of effect, of course, reinforcement. Law of exercise is repetition. And the law of multiple responses is trial and error. Because when he was developing ed psych, you don't want to use the same language the other psych thing. You want your own terminology. And so law of effect, reinforcement. Law of exercise, repetition. Law of multiple responses, trial and error. And there are a couple of, and Thorndike did not believe in punishment. Both Skinner and him did not believe in punishment. Matter of fact, Skinner goes so far as to say if you reinforce correctly, you never have to use punishment. Well, that's good luck on that deal. But, because reinforcement produces positive situations, punishment negative, and we know we get more positive than we do with negative. So now there was a couple of subsidiary laws that I want you to know. Because the three main ones, law of effect, law of exercise, and law of multiple responses. But there's three other ones that I want you to know. In the book, there's 5, so there's 3 of these 5. One is set or attitude. Now, set has two main definitions it implies to education. One definition is attitude. Set is attitude. What kind of set or attitude do you bring in class? So Thorndike said that you got to work on the child's attitude or set. Oh, I hate math. That kid's not going to not do a lot of work in math. So you got to change the attitude. Or if you come to class going, oh, God, no joy in class, I hate this, you're not going to learn anything. Second edition of set is the one we use more often, and that's about predisposition to solve a problem. For every problem, there's a set, a way of solving it. And the more sets you have, the better off you are. Like a grease fire, you don't pour water on it. You need a different set. So the smart people have a lot of sets to solve a problem. So Thorndike believes in teaching as many sets as possible. The other subsidiary law is the law of selective attention, and the name gives it out. It is what's significant or more striking is you pay attention to. In a classroom, the teacher should be the one you paying attention to. Selective attention should be on the teacher. But we got people on cell phones, we got people on computers, we got people look out the window. people are looking at a spider, or I don't know. But anyway, Thorndike said that it's important that you look at the teacher. And so, the idea is, and you have selective attention. The third one is response by analogy, and I really like this. Response by analogy is kind of like generalization. It's learning similar elements, and basically, it's Aesop's fable. Response by analogy is telling a story that the students can relate to understand the concept. I tell a lot of stories. A lot of people think that they're made up, but most 99% of them are true. So, so the fact is that one way of effective teaching is to use response by analogy. Find something the student can relate to, that understands, and the new material, you try to get it similar to that material. And the student will learn it quicker. Okay, that ends that, and I hope you enjoyed it. And this is the end of chapter 5, part 1.